In this video, I'm going to be talking about opportunity, and more specifically, opportunity cost. So, especially when it comes around to the whole idea of inbound closing. So, when I decided to take some courses on inbound closing, I had to look at the opportunity cost and how that works in a nutshell. I'm not a economist or anything like that, but basically, whenever you make a decision for something, say you're buying a boat, for example, and it's $10,000, you have to look at it and go, okay, is this something that I want to buy? Is this more valuable than something else that I'm willing to sacrifice? So, for example, if I spend $10,000 on this boat, I can't spend $10,000 on something else. Maybe it's renovations around the home, your backyard, whatever it is, and then you have to figure out what all the benefits of that purchase would be. So is it like, can you take your family out boating, all this kind of stuff? Is there, are there reasons to make this decision more valuable than something else? So when it comes to inbound closing, I looked at the course and I went, yeah, you know what, $97 to gain another skill, it seemed reasonable. Now you have to figure out where that crunch line is between, like, $97 is really nothing. Even $200 is a drop in a bucket. Once you get to the $2,000 marker, that, for a lot of people, that could be half a month's salary. So you work 20 days to pay for something that's $2,000. If you buy something for $10,000, that could be 2-3 months salary savings. That could be your emergency, whatever it is, if you have something stashed aside. That means if you spend $10,000 on this side, that means there's something that you can't buy for $10,000, because there's no way you can sustain that. You can't buy something else for. You can't buy one thing for $10,000 and the next month $10,000 and then the next month $10,000. You can't sustain that. You have to have some kind of a return on that investment. So when I got into inbound closing, you're spending upwards of over $8,000 US on the various programs with that. So then I had to give up something on the other side. That could be maybe it's something like, I wrote some notes down here, but maybe it's something like travel. And with COVID-19, it's very difficult to travel anyway. But if you spend, let's say, for example, $10,000 here, I can't spend $10,000 to go to watch baseball games or whatever, which was part of the dream. Was the idea was, if I learn a new skill, that eventually you'd be able to make enough money to be able to travel whenever you want, work from wherever you wanted, all that kind of stuff, vacation, all this. But right now you have to give that up, because you got to make up that, whatever it was that you paid for. So you could give up luxury items, like maybe it's something as like clothing. It might sound like it's not that much, but when you think about what it took you to make that becomes a huge burden, if you will. So you got to figure out a way to get that return, because you're giving up, travel. Maybe it's medical expenses, pleasures, dining out. Maybe it's helping out family. For example, if somebody comes to you and they need $4,000 because they want to invest in a business, or things are tight for them, something went wrong, you don't have that opportunity now, because you've invested in this area. Maybe it's giving towards church. Maybe the missionary or something comes to church and it's like, well, I just invested this much. I can't give any more money as to this. Now, you can have an argument that says, well, you should be able to give anyway and all this kind of stuff. But when you're investing in this, you sacrifice something. And I think that is what is missed when you're in the inbound closing program, is there something has to be sacrificed. And if you throw it on a credit card, and a lot of credit cards are 22%, if you don't pay that investment off right away, which means, let's say, for example, within 30 days, that will accumulate, and it'll take you about at least 127 years to pay that off at a minimum basis. So you have to not only have that $10,000, but you have to have a way to put more money against that so that you can pay that down to zero. Then now that skill becomes a valuable asset because it's not becoming a burden on this side. So that's some of the things that, like, I'm trying to change the energy of my channel, if you will, to not be negative and put businesses down or any of that kind of stuff, but to actually be able to explore ideas when you're getting into inbound closing and what the sacrifice is. Because if you don't understand what the sacrifice is for purchasing any program, it could be $2,000, then you might have to rethink things over, because there's going to come a time where you have to pay that down, and you have to spend time applying for a position. Maybe it's an appointment setter, probably at the start, especially if you don't have any experience. You probably come in as an appointment setter, and it might be just for the experience alone. It might be free at the beginning. Again, another sacrifice, because if it's free, you're not going to be able to pay down that debt for the course. It's almost like a university program in some ways, but it's condensed into less than a month. Whereas a university program, you get material for like a year, 2 years, whatever it is. So you have a burden that's within 30 days, and then now you got to figure out a way to get out of that. So if, say you did find an inbound closing program, you still got to make at least $10,000 a month to pay that off. So there's that pressure there, which means how many deals do you have to close right out of the gate? Let's just say the average commission that you get is $300, $500. How many sales do you have to close? How many appointments do you have to book? And then how many of those appointments does the closer have to close? That's just to get you to start paying down your investment. That's not talking about getting ahead. So, and we're not talking about how much time and energy it spends into basically trying to find employment and all that kind of stuff. That's some of the things that are getting missed in the shiny new object of becoming an inbound closer. And in this channel, that's what I want to do, is I want to be able to explore these concepts, these ideas for people, especially people that are like, yeah, you know what, I'm thinking about a career change and all this kind of stuff. You have to figure out a way to do it smartly so that you're not putting yourself in a position where you're a burden. You have to look at the opportunity cost. And like I said, $100, $500, $2,000, that's something you can replace. But once you get into a higher ticket, it messes with your mind and all that kind of stuff, because now you're not only thinking about how to get rid of that, but you got to think about how to make up that. And it's almost like you got to double your income, triple it, whatever. So if you're making $5,000, you want to pay back 10, you have to make about $20,000 in order to pay that back, just to get rid of that, and then start getting ahead, which could take you a few months, especially if you've never made $20,000 a month. it gets a little tough. So that's some of the things that people aren't really talking about in their channels when it comes to inbound closing and finding clients and all this kind of stuff. It's time and energy, especially if you have a full-time job. It's very difficult. So that's my goal, is to share with you, if you're considering an inbound closing course, you have to figure out the opportunity cost and find a program that is within your budget that doesn't set you back as well. So I hope that makes sense. Feel free to comment. Like I said, I'm changing up the channel a bit. I don't want to get so negative, because at the same time, I don't want to screw up any potential employment opportunities by bashing other companies and stuff. And so I got to be careful about that, because you always want to come across as professional as well, and thoughtful. So that's what I'm doing, even though there is a big burden right now that I got to be able to pay this all back and crush all this debt, if you will, and still be optimistic, because really there is an opportunity out there. It's just a matter of finding it, whether that means creating my own opportunities or whatever it is. There's always a possibility out of that. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, I'm off to work, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye for now.